We're recording. I got Steve Grochowski here on the EastWindFishing podcast. So this episode, we kind of had an idea that we're going to talk about what not to do because me and Steve fucked up a lot and caught not a lot of fish the first couple years, which is really the struggle that a lot of guys go through when they first start out. So I kind of want to start out. So I guess 4 years ago is when we kind of started. Well,
I think it's 3. We're coming into season 4 now, right?
This is objective. Since we've both gotten our new boats and gotten we're talking light tackle fishing. So yeah, probably we're coming into season 4 now.
Right. We both knew what light tackle was 3 years ago, and
yes,
it was the mystery that this doesn't work.
Yeah. So we'll get to that in probably 45 minutes and 4 beers later, and I'm super excited that we're back to drinking beer on the podcast. Because the last couple we didn't, but that's why I brought Steve here because he's a good drinking and fishing buddy. So let's start with this. Just go over your fishing background. Let's do that. Let's build the story here.
Yeah, I started as a kid growing up. My dad was a big outdoorsman, hunting, fishing, at early age. I mean, little kid fishing, a lot of bobber and stuff like that. Had family on the Wye River, so we would crab and fish down there.
You guys have a house, like a vacation house out there?
No. My aunt and uncle lived on the Wye River. A really nice house. So
where is the Wye?
Eastern Shore. If you go back to Chester and get way up in there, Kent Island. As soon as you go over the bridge, it's like the second exit.
Okay, all right. On your left.
Yeah, the sign says Nesbitt, and it's like...
Okay, gotcha.
Now it's a super, super rich house. Rich neighborhood, rich area.
Yeah.
Brian Billick lives back there.
Really?
Mm-hmm. So... started doing that early, never really didn't get good, just stayed kid fishing. And as I grew up, I got into more sports, played football and all this. My dad actually transitioned from being an outdoorsman to golf.
I thought you were going to say your dad transitioned.
It's starting already. No, he...
Go ahead, sorry.
It's going to be that podcast. No, he... You can only, and it's funny, we have a lot of people we know that either golf or fish, and it's kind of hard to do both because they both time consuming, money consuming. Yeah. So he got big into golf, and I did too. So this is like high school, early 20s. Fishing really wasn't a thought for me. We still do a couple charters here and there. Went at vacation fishing.
When I was playing golf, I had zero thoughts about fishing. It was, we talk about this on the Brad podcast. They're super similar, like just.
And it's funny, it's the same group of guys because,
yeah.
That's where Brad came in, and we'll get into that, but that's how I know Brad.
Sorry to cut you off. Keep going.
No, it's all right. So I really had nothing fishing in my mind, but every time my wife and I would go out and we go to like a dock bar, a restaurant, I would see the water and the piers and the piles. Like, God, there's something like compelled. Like, it was in my heart that I just love being around the water. And I'd say like 7 years ago, my friend Steve Lombardi got a bass boat. He was like, "Hey man, you want to go fishing?"
So he had just gotten that boat.
Yeah, he had a little reservoir boat, an electric one, and I was like, "No." It looked like if I got on that boat, it was going to be a problem.
Yeah.
So he got a bass boat and actually started up here in the flats. He's like, "You want to go fishing?" I was like, "Yeah, man." I was like, "I have nothing. I mean, literally not a single piece of tackle." He's like, "Sorry, you can use mine." And as you know me,
2 days later,
it's not acceptable to use somebody else's tackle. So I show up the next day. 2 rods in hand, a tackle box full of bass stuff that I'm like, okay, let's just try to buy some stuff. And it actually went all right. I didn't catch nothing the whole day. He's caught a couple of bass. And then late in the day, I got that first one. And it was probably nothing big, 3.5, 4 pound bass.
Yeah, but it's exciting.
And it was, we were jumping up and down on the boat like.
What?
Like I scored a touchdown. It was my first fish since I was, besides char, I was the first say this, he was only a finesse fisherman. So it was Senkos and soft plastics and just you had to trick the fish. There was no crank. You had to trick it. So I did that and I was like, man, this is great. So for 2 years, I did bass fishing with him only.
How often were you doing that?
Every couple weeks, maybe 2 or 3
weeks. You weren't hitting it like 2-3 times a week.
No, I was like the alternate. So he had a friend, Rick, that's since passed away. I know a lot of people in the fishing community knew him. Had a terrible accident, and so he never wanted to take out, like, he liked just the 2 men on the boat. Every now and then he would put me as the third guy.
Yeah.
And these guys knew how to fish, and I was just like trying to, learn.
Yeah.
Watching their hands. Well, I was like, okay, we're doing this, we're jigging this, we're moving this. And I got better. I mean, I did get better. I'd never, not saying I'm a bass fisherman at all. But I did, so I caught that first fish, and my friend Steve turns to me, he goes, you know what that fish's name is? I was like, what? He goes, 500. I was like, how you figured that? He's like, you spent $500 in gear to catch one fish. I was like, yeah, you're right. I was like, and I loved it. And he said, I kept doing that for a couple years, and I liked bass fishing, but I just kept looking at the bay and these rockfish and this big open water, and a boat that I think more, the family can share.
Yeah, because you're not going to take your wife on a bass boat.
No, and then like, my wife and his wife are friends, so we could go out, but it never worked out. It was an 18-foot boat. So was it 2018, I think? So I said, we're going to the Four Season, however that math works out. I got a 23-foot Hydrosport cabin boat. What do you call it? Walk around. And which was, extremely similar to your boat. I mean,
my trophy. Yeah.
And I still knew nothing about, I knew bass fishing, but that's kind of where we started picking up with, I knew a couple people in like Facebook groups trying to get, figure everything out on the internet. Like,
well, that's how, I guess we'll get there, but that's how we met, was both of us at the same time are kind of hopping in and out of these Facebook groups, which can be helpful. Now that we've kind of figured, we've kind of carved our little path here, it's weird, and those Facebook groups just piss me off because it's just people. You post a picture and people are like, "Where'd you catch that at? What'd you catch that on?" And it's like, dude, the whole fun of this is the chase. Now, you do need shit like this. Like this podcast could potentially help somebody that's like us, because it's a whole lot of like, don't waste your time doing this because you're not going to do that. But that's how we met. How many fucking hours did you say you burned on your boat? Was that the first year you had your boat? That's when we met?
Yeah, it was the first year I had my boat, and that was the year. It was crazy slow in the bay in
general for everybody. It
was a poor early year. I'm sure there's people saying, "Well, no, it wasn't where I was." Well, the people I talked to, and I'd already had a little group of people that knew what they were doing, and it was slow up here, and I knew what light tackle was. I seen it, and I was like, man, this is just... So I immediately just went into let's buy the big bay trolling stuff. Let's buy the Penn Battle 2s for cut bait. I had my whole bath.
It's kind of cool, and it is enamoring when you see a trolling rig out there. You're like, I want to be a waterman. There is something about that. I used to try trolling, and I just gave up on trolling so fast because it's so much money. And some guys are great at it, but also, like, we all know this. Any light tackle guy or anybody watching this podcast knows, geez, I'm about to burp, that it's boring. Once you, once you hook into the fish, it's like you can't stop the boat. You got 2 planer boards out. And how many rigs do you run?
Well,
6, 8, 24?
It got correct. Like, I thought more rigs, more chance of getting fit. So this is mostly, first time out. Chris talked about it, that we went out. We couldn't even get out of the middle. I was so green on driving a boat that weather forecast, it was like, it's raining. That doesn't really matter. You don't realize the winds are gusting 30 miles an hour. The bay is angry.
Yeah.
And we turned around. But the second day we went out and we're trolling, and I had no idea what to get. So I got the huge, the 9-inch lures, the trophy lures, and we weren't out until I think early June. Like, it's probably the wrong gear for that time. We actually got one. I think it was like a 27, 20. It was actually a decent fish. Our first time, I was like, this isn't that hard. You just troll her. That was probably the only trolling fish we got for a very long time.
Yeah.
And then it's just like, well, get a bunch of cut bait. Look for the fleet. You find the fleet, throw an anchor down, and sit there in the sun with cut bait out.
It's just, I think back to that, the first year being out there. I guess, what is that? I guess in between Middle River and the other side of the bay, when there was just...
Tolchester.
Tolchester. I drove my boat down there, which was like $300 in gas because I had an old 2-stroke. It was ridiculous. Going down there and there's just floating rockfish, just dead rockfish, and they weren't even big. They're all like 18-inch rockfish, and that's... I've had, the couple guys here on the podcast where, I think it was Dave Zakorski, and they had talked about potentially, I just said potentially, lowering the size limit, not so people could keep more fish, so that people would limit out sooner, because it makes sense, dude. It's like,
I get it. I just don't know how you eat anything smaller than an 18-inch. I mean, you cut it open, you get a chicken nugget get out of it's just.
Oh yeah, even a 19.
Yeah, and people don't know how to release. I mean, that's a whole different topic.
Yeah,
but that's. I said I knew what light tackle was, but it was so hard to do it. So I bought all these rods, troll. I mean, I had 20 rods that were all too heavy. And then when I saw a jigging rod, I got like a bay jigging rod with a 5500 reel, thinking that's a jigging rod. Like I was so green.
Yeah. Well, because you think by looking at pictures on Instagram and Facebook that you're going to go stumble into 40-inch rockfish every day. No, if you know what you're doing, which you're just starting to get there. Well, I would say we still don't know what we're doing. We still need help. When you first start out, you see all these people that know what they're doing, and you're thinking like, oh, I'm going to go out and catch 4 50-inch rockfish today. No, that's once in a lifetime, once every couple of years type thing. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, and I'd been on trolling boat like charters, and so I thought, you go out, you do your thing, you limit out, and I've always been on successful, those type of charters. So I thought that's all you did. It was pretty. That's how you rockfish, and I started looking
for big fish too.
Yeah, and I thought those fish were, like I said, bought huge trolling gear because I thought the big fish just kind of stayed around. I didn't understand the migration pattern. Yeah. I mean, I'm telling you, totally nothing. I'm sure everybody's like, yeah, well, we know you know nothing. We were there. I believe I make fun of myself more than anybody else. Like I will totally say I knew nothing at that point, and now, like I say, I know a lot more than I did then. So. But the first real exposure I got, and I said I bought the Kimbrough book. I watched his YouTube videos. The who's the other guy's name? Escapes me right now.
Batista?
No. Because Kimbrough says you need leaders and really fancy colored lures, and the other guy says you can tie braid right to it. Oh God, I can't believe it.
Is it a captain or a guy who wrote a book?
What is Ludlow, right?
Oh, Lenny Ruddo.
Ruddo. Okay, sorry. Yeah, Ruddo. Like, so I had his book, and because it's funny, they got two different schools of thought. Like, it's still the same jigging.
And I'm sure they fish together, too.
Yeah, it's snap jigging. So I was like, okay. And then I was introduced through, I don't know how, maybe Brad or somebody like that, to Jamie Clough. And I fished with him, and he was one of the only people I knew I knew who Brad was, but I knew he was running charters, but I didn't really know. I think that's right at the time you went on the first charter with him. I went a couple months. I think I only had my boat 1 or 2 months. It was still first year. And I went out on a boat with Jamie, and I watched, I was like, we had 6 people in the boat, some of who has never had a light tackle rod in their hand ever. A couple other people that may have seen it done, but, a lot of people that didn't really know how to light tackle fit, and we just crushed it. We got on birds. They're jumping out of the water. And I think back now, it's like, man, that was actually pretty tough because it was an epic day. Like days that most people were like, I don't get many of them. And I thought, okay, well, this is what it is. Yeah. So we come back, next week. So I'm like, all right, this is easy.
Did you mark the spot and go right back there, and they weren't there?
I know where it is, but it's a little far ride for me. But and that's another thing. It's below the Bay Bridge, so I figured, well, that's the only place you can light tackle is down there. It doesn't work anywhere else.
Yeah.
But we tried to light tackle, and we always took cut bait as backup because we didn't know where to go.
I've been there for Steve Plan B. That's just so you all have a grasp of how Steve's days go. He plans them out for the entire week. Okay, and when you get to the boat, he goes, I brought cut bait, but we're not using it today. We're gonna go out there, and I don't care if we strike out. Give it, I don't know, 3 hours of striking out and moving around and chasing. He's like, let's just throw some cut bait to see if we're here, and then we'll switch back to light tackle. And then the days just they go to either we go for mackerel or blues or whatever. But yeah, Steve has grandiose plans in his head that just, I'm not gonna say they never pan out because we've had some good days of fishing, but they're not what you planned.
No, very rarely does it work out, especially back then. Nothing worked out. Now, we did catch a lot of fish on cut bait pulling up to the fleet. Like, it did work. I mean, I got plenty of pictures of, and that's back when you could keep 6, and we'd have, or I say 6.
2 per person, and you were
I would always, normally 3. So I'd normally have 6 on the cooler, good stuff. So it worked. I caught fish.
Yeah.
I never had a problem catching fish, but I did want to do the light tackle.
Yeah,
so much more fun. This is like, and so we would always try, and I think the first one I got was a really good. It's funny because I don't, you had Brad on here, and I talked to Brad on Facebook, and I'd be like, well, what's going on here? I want to light tackle. I was like, we're near the fleet. He's like, you got to get away from the fleet. I was like, okay. well, the fish are where the fleet are. So I thought he meant
Why was he saying that?
well, because you don't want to be in the cut bait. You don't want to be where if the fleet's sitting wherever, it's Love Point, Swan Point, you probably don't want to light tackle right next to them. It's not a good idea. You're not going to do well.
Yeah.
So he's like, you got to get away from the fleet. So I thought that meant, go 500 yards away from them because maybe the fish will. And actually it worked. I got like a good fish pretty quick. I was like, okay, well, this is what it's all about. No. Yeah. And I said, with Jamie, we saw birds. We had birds breaking. So I knew what it looked like when it worked. But we didn't see any birds in the North Bay.
You haven't even touched your beer. I'm sorry. I just noticed that. Good Lord. Keep going.
Well, you're a pro at this.
Sure. No, I just drink.
You're in a reggae band. You're used to being in front of a microphone. Hey, look up Matt Huss's reggae band.
Don't.
If you find a link, post it in the comments.
Damn it! You don't even know the name of it, so there's no way to look for it.
Dude, there's internet sleuths. They'll figure it out.
Yeah.
I've seen it.
I'm sorry. I cut you off. I cut you off. I'm like, I already finished my beer, and you still got a full one. So you're 500 yards away from the fleet.
Yeah, I did. And
you figured it out.
No, well, I figured out that I caught a fish, and just because you had Novak on the last podcast, he went 2 years without jigging a fish. So
I remember
he wants to shit on me. He couldn't catch a fish to save his life. Hi, Chris. So again, like I really wanted to get in light tackle because it looked so cool, and I'm watching. I'm seeing people posting pictures, especially Brad, because that's one of the people that. Just to circle out, Brad was a golfing buddy of my dad and a bunch of my dad's friends. So as soon as I got my boat, at the same time, Brad got his captain's license, and my dad's like, well, talk to Brad for anything. And I was like, cool, Brad's the encyclopedia. I'll just keep hitting him. And then after a while, I was like, I probably should stop. Yeah. I should only, like, he's
you don't
like,
wear out your well.
Yeah, he's like, and again, it was never like, give me a spot where to go. It was always just like, little tip. Yeah. I've never just flat ass going, where do I go? What do I do? Because I can tell you where I caught every fish. It ain't gonna do you any good unless this is much late. This is year 3 stuff when you're like, oh, tide, temperature, things like that. So we've really muddled through the first year, and the only difference between me and you, I was using cut bait down south. You were using live lining up north.
I was live lining perch up here.
Yeah, and you were catching fish, and every time you'd be like, I caught fish. I was like, you don't like tackle? He's like, no. I was like, you cheated. We knew we wanted to get out of the bait space and start being like, okay, we figured this out, but. I mean, it got better, but the first 2 years were either live line, cut bait. Actually, I thought when we moved up to live lining, I was like, all right, we've actually gotten better. Learned how to throw a cast net. We're catching bait. I'm like, all right, at least we're fishing twice. We're catching bait, and then so we improved, but still nothing. It wasn't until really last year that. And I'm gaining knowledge again. When I started, I had no idea where I didn't know what Tolchester was. I kind of knew where Rock Hall was because of charters. I bought this Bustum Baits makes a map that has all like the main spots, 7 foot, 6 foot, 9 foot.
And you're like, we're here, and there's nothing here.
Yeah, I was like, well, they got names on the map. They got to be here. So literally just driving from spot to spot, Love Point, Swamp. Like I said, we caught fish, but we're using bait. We're cheating.
Yeah.
Still, we jigged a few fish, just probably by pure dumb luck. I'd say at the end of season 2, I remember because Chris's son was on the boat. And we finally got on birds. And I knew that you just chased the bird. I mean, I knew the concept, but finding birds was like, I didn't understand like how far you light tackle. By the way, if you're getting a light tackle, get ready to burn some gas.
I was going to say, if you're going to take anything away from this podcast, which I know we'll say it a couple of times, one thing we didn't know is chase the birds. Like
you could turn your fish finder off and just do nothing.
That's how they used to do it.
I mean, a set of binoculars and somebody that can stand up straight and chase the bird. But so we found the bird. Chris's son actually found the birds. He got them, he had 9-year-old eyes. He's like, they're over there. And, we were just throwing stuff at them, jigs and stuff. And we're getting a lot of small fish. It's like, okay, well, this is what we're looking for, these little feeding frenzies. But it was nice. It was fun, but it was still kind of small.
The fish size?
Yeah.
Or the catch itself?
Yeah, just the fish size, because we were probably on a small, little...
Yeah, now we know.
They're diaper stripers. You should move on after...
Yeah, you roll up and it's, it's small birds, it's small fish. Small birds are on rain bait. You get out there and if you find the gannets, you're going to get a good quality of fish, because gannets aren't out there hitting rain bait. They're out there smashing bunker.
Right, so that was probably year 2. And it's funny, I'll say this, every year we do trophy trolling. I'll do it again this year.
It's such a joke though.
And it's hilarious just because I still have the gear and I'm going to do it. And one of these days, we have not caught a single fish during trophy trolling, and we've got all the right stuff. We've got the right that. We've talked to so many captains, and Chris has got his network. I got a network of people. We know everything's set right. We just had the worst luck, and I think it's stupid because I don't even like doing it. But I've got the stuff. I'm going to do it again.
At this point, you're just like, once you catch one, just stop.
Yeah, I don't even want it. I mean, I'm going to let it go. Like I have no desire to do. I just because the boat just went in the water this week. So I'm looking forward to just getting out there, going for a boat ride.
Yeah. It's a good way to break in your motor for the year.
Yeah, but I really am. This will happen. We'll go trophy troll, and then half that stuff will go in the basement and never get touched until next year. The other half of the rod, I keep a couple trolling rods just for later in the year on the mackerel bite with the down. That's one thing we do great. We catch a ton of mackerel. We mastered that trolling.
There's a good story there. We'll get to
that.
Yeah,
we'll get to the mackerel stories. Yeah, you teased it on podcast 2, I think.
Yeah.
But last year is where all the and again, I'm not saying we're both reading, we're talking to a lot of people. I guess interject a lot of light tackle trips with Brad. I mean, Brad's been an intercourse, but more for you because you've become his protege. He might not know it, but if Brad gets something, Matt's going to have it the next day.
Yeah, because I paid to go on a trip with him.
Yeah, you've got to pay for half that boat. The amount of trips you've been on, and I've been on, which I considered a lot for somebody that owns a boat. People are like, why would you pay to go on a boat when you have a boat?
Because it's different.
It's like, for one, he moves all up and down. If he's moving somewhere, there's a chance there's fish there.
Yeah, we're not chasing 18-inch rockfish.
Right. I mean,
and not only that, when it comes to, and I don't want to make the podcast about Brad because I always bring him up. Yeah, whatever. He's a huge part of my fishing life, but I think I'm his go-to guy for like, hey, you want to try something weird and see if we can make some magic happen? And I'm like, absolutely, because last year we got just stupid. There's some skill involved, but the trips I was on, it's almost impossible to go on trip after trip after trip and just breaking PBs, breaking boat records with cobia and reds and doing all that crazy stuff. I lucked out with that. Yeah,
and I only did. I've done his. I don't know. I'm 5 or 6 trips with him, and so I was learning, more light tackle, and we're getting better. And we're really parallel on the same thing. Like, we're both growing at, I think, the same time, figuring out all these different types of soft plastics, paddle tails. And then you're talking Elias. Then we're using busting bait. We use Z-Man. Like, we are figuring out what works in what situations, what weight lures. Like, so there is learning going on. But I still would not catch anything like I'd catch with Brad. Like, his trips or Jamie's, when I went with Jamie, that was like, I was like, how are they doing this? And I said, when Brad puts in his boat somewhere, chances are there's fish there.
Yeah.
And I'm not locked, but my boat's not a good trailer boat. So I'm in Middle River. I come out of Middle River. I'll go down. We went into Eastern Bay, but that's way far. So normally just a little bit past the Bay Bridge, maybe to the Severn. Like that's
Thomas Point is about as south as you're willing. Well, it's an hour drive.
Right. And we figured out last year that we ain't got to go anywhere near that if we don't want to.
Yeah.
But last year, I had 3 of my best fishing days ever, and they were 3 trips in a row, and each one was better than the trip before, and it was all like, it was complete light tackle. There was I think I threw out 1 piece of bait, and it was like 10 minutes into it, I was like, this is stupid. We're done with this. We can get rid of this stuff. But I remember
the thought of buying live bait anymore. I just don't even think about it.
And if you do that and that's your thing, more power. If you want to just sit on anchor and get a suntan,
some people like that.
I mean, yeah.
I just meant like it's nice to like we have our gear. You don't have to go out to you don't have to wake up at 5. You get the bait shop by 6.
No.
And buy what do they call it, a bunker to stink up your boat. Like we talk shit about it just because it's not what we do. But I don't. No, I don't hate on people for doing it.
No, and at the time I was like, oh, this is great. So last year, it's right after trophy, the fish migrated up to Tolchester at one point early, and they were in there thick. And I just remember it was me and Novak, and we're over there, and the fish finder just did false bottom after false bottom. I mean, it was just so sick with fish, and we're just, we could have easily caught hundreds of fish.
Were you by yourself, or were you with a fleet?
There was there was a bunch of people on anchor. We were definitely closer than I normally do on light tap. So we were in the area, but Tolchester has like 2 ledges, I guess north and south, you want to say. They were more on the south side, and we found like the tide. They were on the back side, and we really just caught a ton. And this was in the PM. So every boat leaves and it's dark. And Novak and I are just throwing top water in the dark, just catching fish after fish after. I was like, this is what it's all about. I was like, finally. And even then, I wouldn't say we figured how to do light tag, but it was still known that the fish were at Tolchester. Like that was a piece of public knowledge that I got through Facebook and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
It's not like I said, I'm going to Tolchester to find them. They were it was well known that it was so stacked that. So I think like a week or two went by. So maybe it wasn't consecutive trips that they moved out of Tolchester. We might have had a trip that was, not memorable. I don't remember it, but I remember going into the Patapsco and then coming out of the Patapsco and just coming like we struck out in the Patapsco. But previous to this, we'd only been in the Patapsco like once or twice, and really we didn't know how to navigate it or any spots in there. But it was Chris and I, and actually our other friend Frank was in his boat, and he was ahead, and we just came out somewhere outside kind of the Patapsco going, around that area. And I came off plane. I was like, I have a spot that was really good for me in previous years, normally late in the fall, but I came off, and and Chris mentioned this, there wasn't a boat besides Frank not on the horizon anywhere. And I came off, and the fish finder was like nothing I'd ever seen. I was like shaking.
Just a solid block of fish.
Yeah, and I was like, Chris. So we literally just start.
That's not an exaggeration, by the way. When Steve sees fish, his voice gets all, oh, Chris, oh.
I've heard you too cheering, like when you.
Yeah!
Well, back in the day when we caught a fish, it was memorable. Like the first couple of years, I could tell you every fish I jigged. I could tell you the spot and what it was on because it was so little. I mean, so far and few and far between. So we just start throwing everything, and like literally while we're taking one fish off, I remember I dropped a lure, and it was just, and I look over and the rod's doing this, and there was like a 28-inch fish on it with nobody even. That's how, and we were in like 30 foot of water. Like it really shouldn't have worked like that.
Yeah.
So it went on for probably, and there was no birds. It was that one was kind of just checking a spot that I thought was good. And it was good. It's a bottom structure spot, and it was just great for like 45 minutes. We just had a blast. And I was like, oh, that was wonderful. And our friend Frank went past, and because we were going somewhere else. We were going to another spot, one of his spots, and we're texting him, calling him, like, turn around, because he blew past. I was like, turn around. They're all right here. And so finally he comes back. He has a day. I think he had a couple kids on his boat, and like everybody just had a great day. And it was a week later that we go back, and I was like, well, I know where I'm going. I'm going right back to that spot. I went out, and I remember sending out pictures of this. The entire world was sitting there. The fleet was said there wasn't a boat within 5 miles we had that day. The fleet was just sitting on anchor there. So if you guys want to figure out where the fleet moved to, that's where it was. And I was like, and it's a spot I've never seen the fleet before. In my 3 years of being out there.
Did you post any pictures?
No. And even we did. It was in the middle of nowhere.
Did Frank tell anybody?
Somebody told somebody. I remember talking to Brad, and he's like, don't let it get. And it was about 3 days until I started seeing some pictures. And by the time I got out there on the weekend, it was just.
And it's ruined at that point.
It was ridiculous. Yeah. So, of course, we're like trying to move around. It's like, all right, maybe they're still here, but somewhere else. And then Frank was out fishing, said he's got a boat too. And he was on another spot about 5 miles away. And he goes, it's ridiculous. So this is kind of, you guys talked about the network before. So I helped him out the first time. He's like, it's insane. So I, put it in high gear, get over to him, and it went on for like 2 hours over, 2, 3.
This is rare,
Oh yeah,
I'm not saying you be getting on fit. Well, that's rare too, but I'm saying no, yeah. Well, it's just the start of the
not
podcast.
Last year.
Yeah, no. But what I'm talking about is like when you get on a school of fish, like if you're on it for 15 minutes, you're lucky,
Right, and it's so the first time we weren't on the birds, Frank was on the bird. When we got there, the birds were everywhere. The fish were and great quality fish, 25 inches and up for most of it. Like when it's 25 to like 28, if you get a 30 in the summer, kudos to you. Up in the northern bay where we fish, but it went on forever. And it went on for so much that it was just we were getting tired and hot because then it's midday. And my friend Chris White was on the boat. We're done. And we're like just talking to Frank after hours of catching fish. Chris jumps in the water. And I'm literally just holding a rod next to him swimming and pull up a great fish. And I was like, the bite is so hot that somebody could be swimming in the water. And this isn't supposed to happen.
How close to him were you?
Oh, real close. Like he jumped off the side. Well, my boat's not that big. I'm on the same side he jumped on and caught a fish after he jumped in. Like that's how stupid it was.
Yeah. But and you know, we talk about other podcasts. You know, this is, I guess, a conservation podcast. But even though we have these great days like this, and this is what tricks people into going like, the population's still fine. It's like, no, it used to be like this everywhere all year.
Yeah,
and it's not like that anymore. It's kind of cool in a weird way. It's kind of cool. It's a little harder to catch fish now because it's more rewarding once you finally get on them. But it's not, you know, it's obviously not good that.
Well, I just posted a picture on Facebook not too long ago when I was a little kid. I don't know, like 10 or maybe 9 that old. My dad's blue. I mean, there were 40-inch plus blues up in the Upper Bay.
Upper Bay.
Yeah, like no. So I mean, we lived in Parkville, so he would have been north of the bridge fishing. Yeah, just massive blues.
So there's no blues runs in like Ocean City now. But
no, I mean we caught some down at like the Pax River area.
Wow.
Well, you were there.
Did what for blues?
Yeah, remember the small blues, not the big blues.
Like were we trolling?
No, they kept eating all the Elias baits because every time Dave would throw one out, and
I
was like, "You're down like $7, $8. Not keep throwing those Elias out."
And
I was throwing the little Castmaster. I was like, "I'm not losing, bait every time."
The fish find your rig.
Yeah.
So, hang tight. Commercial break. I already got to pee. This is going good so far. Yeah, I'll cut that. And we're back. We talked about this, me and Steve. Steve's known for having a small bladder, but then
yours is microscopic compared to mine. So, I don't even know how you catch a fish when you got to pee every 10 seconds.
So we were talking about blues high in the bay, which I said this earlier. I want to get back to the Mac story, which was weird. And this is one thing I appreciate about the bay is it's like every year it kind of throws you something a little different as a gift. Yeah. Sometimes it takes away a trend from last year. Like last year we didn't see the bluefish run in Ocean City. There's been years that I've heard about. Everyone knows I live in the flats. Years where the salinity level was so high that there was flounder caught in the flats and blues up here. I would love to see that. I would go crazy if there was 2 weeks of flounder up here, just randomly.
I've seen one flounder in my own eye, and at Pools Island, I was like, "Oh my god, a flounder on a jig!" I was like, "That's kind of cool."
Did you catch it?
No, actually, I was on somebody else's boat. It was a very small one, but I was like, "That's cool."
Well, you get a dry year. The salinity level at Pools, which is not that far. Pools Island on my boat now is 25 minutes from the top of the Northeast River. I mean, it's not that far. But I guess back to the story. So yeah, every year all the conditions change. We have weird salinity levels, and that's really what controls everything.
Well, and we had the mud. So another thing that really held us back.
Was that the first year? Was the great mud year or second?
Oh God, I don't know. It was debris. I lost my transducer due to the debris.
The first boat the great mud year.
It was the second year, wasn't it? So
no. The great mud year was before I had my trophy.
It was first season. No. It was after you had your trophy because you had the trophy when I met you. It was 2018. I can kind of remember. So it was 2018.
Well, there was a mud year before that because I remember I had my old center console pro line that I pulled out of the boat slip because I'm like, I can't fish. It was so disgusting out there.
Well, this was when the bay was half. You literally looked like half chocolate milk, half non. I think it's 2018.
Yeah.
People are going to be screaming at the podcast. It was this year. But yeah, that also like really hurt. My development fishing because you couldn't catch anything.
Yeah.
I mean, good luck jigging in that. And other people that we know that do light tackle. The smartest thing about light tackle is like now that you got your new boat, you move. It's muddy, bad conditions up here. Go somewhere else.
Exactly.
Me, I'm like, well, I'm kind of stuck to what I got.
Yeah.
So you were going to talk about, how the bay changes and things like. So this was, I think, our year 2, when we were fishing pretty much just outside of Hart Miller Island. Right between
you could see Pools and Hart Miller.
Pools and Hart Miller, kind of right there.
So you triangulate if you know the bay.
Yeah, out of nowhere. Yeah, a fish jumps out. Matt goes, "That's a mackerel." I'm like, "There hasn't been mackerel up this far," and this was way before anyone was catching them in the bay. Nobody was talking about them anywhere near the Chesapeake Bay Bridge.
It's a pelagic fish, and that's. I was like, I've seen perch. And
you said I saw a tail. I'm like, I don't know. Could it be like a shad or something?
Dude. No.
You were convinced, and
I was right.
Yeah, and I think people were saying like maybe they were seeing them way south of Solid, and this was the first year I think they came way up. And
there was reports of them like a couple miles south of Thomas Point, which we were we were an hour boat ride from that.
Yeah, we were nowhere near, and so it was probably maybe a week later, 10 days later, all of a sudden the news was out like get your Clark spoons out, get your.
We caught one that day, didn't we?
No. We had rain minnows, which actually are good for Spanish mackerel.
Yeah, but we had no knowledge of how to catch these macks. Which, if you don't know, you got to get out there. You got to reel as fast as you can. That school's going to move from 500 yards that way to 500 yards that way before you can turn your motor on and get the boat turned.
Yeah. So what we developed is our strategy on that. Run the number one and number two down planters, trolling little Clark spoons, find them, and then start casting at them. And actually, most of the ones we caught a lot. I mean, I remember getting on the radio. I'm like, what's the limit on Spanish Max? The guy comes back, more than you can ever need, because it's like 12 or 14 a person. And they're not the best tasting fish. So
Have you ever eaten one?
Yeah, I made fish bites out of them because they're oily. I would not just fillet it and put it on a plate.
Everyone says that, I forget, I think I had Dave Zakorski here. He was like, yeah, Max are delicious. I was like, not the ones I ate.
And we've had king mackerel, which is supposed to be better than the Spanish, and it's an oily fish.
Well, you have a Traeger. I mean, that's what I was getting at. Is everyone says that when it comes to mackerel, the best way to eat them is to smoke them.
Yeah, and I looked at that recipe, and it involved like a saltwater bath for a while. It just looked like if I have to do all this prep work,
soak it in milk.
Yeah, like when people say you can eat a carp, I'm like, good luck. I mean, you got to do 30 steps to make it edible. It's just no. The vast, overwhelming 99% of the fish that come on my rod go right back in the water.
Yeah.
I probably ate under maybe 5 or 6 rockfish last year total the whole season.
Yeah.
And I said nothing goes in my freezer. So if we're bringing it home, I want it cooked right then. This is my rule as of last year. Going in the beginning, it was like, oh, I want that picture of all these dead fish on the boat, and then you get them all in the freezer. I'm like, this is stupid. I don't even like them.
Yeah.
Like it just developed that more. I think it was probably more of an ego thing in the early. Like, oh, I caught these fish. I wanted to see the spread on the cooler.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's what a lot of the guys wanted. It's the picture with the antlers, basically. You're holding the antler. Like that's kind of what it is.
And when I get people that don't fish as much, and I was like, all right, you want 2 fish? You can have my fish and other fish, and some people that are so ecstatic to take it. I mean, I don't know if you remember. I remember going to charter and like justifying the cost of a charter because I was like, well, I'm bringing home like $60 a rockfish, so it's like half paid for. And like, I don't even
something that's never brought up like in this podcast or anywhere else. Like, rockfish is $20 a pound. So I do have to give somebody that train of thought is rationalized. When it comes to if you catch a 40-inch rockfish and take it home, that's a lot of expensive meat. But do you even think rockfish taste that good? It's okay.
I've gotten so bored with. I said I am done. I used to do the fancy fillets, crab imperial, because I thought it was this fancy fish, and literally now I have this great spicy rockfish bite thing I make for parties. Like when I take rockfish bites apart, they have that mentality. This stuff's $25 a pound. You're giving all this. Yeah. I was like, well, it's fun for a football party. We go watch a football game, a couple pounds of rockfish and a spicy chipotle mayo, little bites, goes over great. But just I'll go get orange roughy or something else if I just want to fillet a fish. Go up bonefish and get the Chilean sea bass. Like that's my fish if I want to eat a fish.
There's 2 fish that I'll keep, and it's because my future wife loves it. Is yellow perch, which have you ever had yellow perch?
Yeah, good buttery fish.
Fucking delicious. And then cobia.
Yeah, which my wife did not like. Which you looked at me like she's a texture eater, so.
But out of all fish, like if I'm thinking that I can see like how like a mushy fish like a mackerel or even like a rockfish could turn somebody's texture off, but like the cobia, it flakes like an onion.
Yeah,
it's like steak.
Cause I'm not a huge fish guy. Like there's only certain ones I'll eat and like really enjoy. I thought it was great, and I prepared. I was like, good fish.
Oh, fantastic.
I presented it. I'm like, oh, she's gonna love it. And she was like,
Did you grill it or bake it?
I baked it. I
gotta grill it.
No, I did. I'm sorry. I do a little pan sear and then finish in the oven. I think, and it was like a basil, butter, basil, garlic. It's the same way I do. What fish do I do that way? There's another. Was it flounder? There's another one I do very similar. It turns out great, and the flavor was all there.
So you liked yours. Because there are parts of the cobia that aren't good to eat.
Yeah, if you get to the dark spot.
You can't tell. There are. Yeah, I was going to say, I had some fillets that were dark. I wonder if I gave you one of those.
It was your fault, man.
I wasn't going to give you my prime cobia fillets.
And my wife's funny. Once she eats something that is not
She'll never try it again.
Never, ever, 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 ever.
Yeah.
So that's off the menu now. So I guess if I catch a cobia, somebody else gets it.
Have you? You haven't caught a cobia yet, have you?
No, Matt, thanks for bringing that up.
No, I didn't know if you did, in a past life.
No, because you've talked about your greatest fishing day ever, and
I have a lot of those.
Yeah, well, the one
I'm being sarcastic, people.
The one, the giant red, that was supposed to be my fishing trip, and every time I had to listen to a whole podcast about you reminiscing for 30 minutes.
There's 13 reds caught that day, dude.
I remember. So this is kind of early in COVID, and my wife's in healthcare, and this was. Kind of, we didn't even know, can you travel? Can you not travel? This and you're like, I'm going. And everybody, I was like, I don't know. I was like, okay, I can't go. And you got to fill in.
Well, no, I'm not going to, I don't, I fished with a bunch of people. The gentleman we went fishing with, I reached out to him. I was like, I guess the trip's canceled. And he was like, I think we're okay, man. I read through the rule book and the COVID rule book at the time, which at the time we all thought we were into.
God, we just interpreted how there was thousands of interpretations.
Yes, it was
sustenance fishing.
Yeah, it was a zombie apocalypse. Well, I mean, fishing for them was legal. It was more the fact of the government going like, hey, nobody's allowed to do anything because we say so. And that's where we were like, man, fuck you.
Right. Well, this was so early. And I said, my wife isn't healthy, and she just deals with very elderly people in very sick conditions. Yeah. And I couldn't risk going out. Again, we didn't know if we moved around, if you were going to bring something. So I was like, nah. But anyway, I was the one that because I was on the previous year's trip down to that area, and I was like we got to go because I missed out on the good fish by one day. So I was like, we're booking a 2-day trip. We booked it a year in advance, and then the COVID hit. I couldn't go. You filled in my spot. And I remember texting. I was like, so how'd it go? And I just got back, you don't want to know. I was like, oh, God. And I see the picture, and I was happy that you called. And at the same time, I was like, oh, my God, one of those should be mine. One of them should have been mine.
Yeah, one of the 13. Good Lord.
Yeah, and the captain's just like, man, you just do not want to know. And I totally forgot about it until I had to listen to 30 minutes of it on one of them.
Well, you had other chances. This year you have chances. We're gonna go down.
Yeah. This year we're gonna try. No, I did. So
early summer we're going down.
Yeah, my parents live in the Carolinas, so later last year I got to go down there and chase them down, and we actually did get them. Not as good as you got them. I think.
What were you using for those reds?
We were cheating. I was
dude. It's still a fight with a red, though. Man.
It was fun. Well, I will say that. So
there's nothing skillful about casting to a school. I mean, finding the school is the skillful part. There's not a whole lot skillful like casting to a school of, I don't know, 3,000 fish.
Well, we my down in the Carolinas where my dad is. We met this captain Shane Britt years ago.
That's the wicked tuna guy, right?
So people now know he's on the Rasta Rocket. He's on Shane. They love it. So I fished with him before that show, and then of course he just blew up there. He's a local celebrity there. But he's like, yeah, the reds are at this dish. It was a warm water discharge. He's like, but they're only there for an hour before sunup, and then they're going. He's like, so we're literally going to do the old school 3 a.m, 4 a.m. You got to get out there, and we did. We got on. I think we had 7 or 8 of them on.
Are these bulls?
Yeah. They were probably 36, 37 in, like not the giants you got, but they're a fun fight, and in the pitch dark too.
Yeah,
we're just sitting in the dark with the zzz, so it was fun.
Yeah,
and he was right. As soon as sun came up, all these other charters come out, and the fish are gone.
Yeah,
they're completely gone. That was a fun day. We call it Reds, King Max, and yeah, he's good because we've done light tackle with him too. He's like he's got a small like inshore boat. He's not he's not like a meat sled captain and he's a championship
He's got a center
fisher.
console, doesn't he?
Yeah, it's like, what do you call them? Like a BX boat, like the hybrid bass and bay boat, where it's got all the panels.
It's a flats boat.
Yeah, but we go out on the ocean on it too. So I don't know what year we're in.
Is it like better in wake than my boat is? Is it flatter, or is it meant for like backwater?
Well, he just got another one because of the show. He got I forget what it is, but it's insane. I mean, it's got a giant motor on his
probably
boat.
A contender.
He's like, you want to go like 7? I'm like, no.
No. He let you drive, didn't he?
No, that was the other boat I got. We went on offshore, and we were coming back in on a huge center console with dual 350s. The captain was like 21. He's like, you want to drive it? I'm like, yeah, I want to drive it, of course.
The captain was 21?
Yeah, he was a little kid. Apparently, he was like a marine biologist or something and got into fishing. He was a young kid.
Was it his boat?
No. He works for like a fleet.
Oh, okay.
They got a lot of things down there. It's a fleet of boats, and
It's a franchise per se.
They just rotate in the captains.
Yeah.
But that's fun fishing. So I got the Maryland fishing on my boat. I got the Carolina fishing down there. And I don't think I've gone down there without fishing with Shane at least once.
I went to Carolina last year. I went down to Topsail Island, and my goal was just to get a puppy drum because this sounds stupid, but I'd only had bull reds at that point, and I was like, I think it'd be cool to catch one of the.
I jigged one off the dock at my parents' and I didn't know what it was.
Really?
I was like, hey, I got this silvery fish.
In recent years, you did?
Yeah. When I couldn't,
yeah.
When we were up here and I didn't know how to jig, I could jig down there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I had a little, I don't know.
They're like largemouth down there. I mean, they're pretty plentiful. But I went out like 7 days in a row in a kayak, and the problem was I saw a ton of puppy drum. I was fishing in 8 inches of water, and that's where they were. It's like these. Was Topsail Island? It's obviously an island. It's kind of like Ocean City, except for in between the island and shore is just swamp. Is not the right word. It's like that. What do you call that? Marshy, maybe.
Yeah, that's pretty much
saltwater marsh.
That's what my parents live on. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was in there with a kayak, and it's like I would get within 50 feet of these puppy drum. They were in packs of 5 or 6, and then they'd spook, and it's like I don't know how much quieter you can be, other than a kayak. But when you're fishing 8 inches of water, it spooks them real easy. Needless to say, I didn't get any. I think I caught a couple croaker and a couple flounder, and that was about it. But I didn't meet my goal. But I did go out with a guy named Judd Brock, and we did a really cool trip for false albies, which I was going down. I had booked a trip to go catch puppy drum, with his push pole boat, in the saltwater marsh, and then he was like, I got some reports of some false albies, and I was like, I don't even know what that is, but if you think it's better than catching puppy drum, I'm willing to do it. Have you ever caught false albacore?
Mm-mm.
You know what they are?
Not really.
They're like, they look exactly.
They're not the.
Where are we at so I can post a picture of it? We're at 75. I gotta text myself. So an albacore is a tuna. So a false albacore is just this little baby. They call it football season or whatever when they're I don't know, 22 to 24 at like the largest maybe, but they're a pelagic fish. They're a little mini tuna. I mean, if you take your rockfish rod down to North Carolina,
do they have another name? Because I think I caught one of them. Did you eat it?
No, they're garbage to eat.
Then it's not the same thing I caught, and I can't remember what the name is.
You're probably thinking starts with a B.
And it's a real buttery tasting fish.
I can't remember. It's what is the name? It starts with a B.
I could just hear everybody yelling out the answers.
Yeah. all 200 listeners.
200 more than us.
Yeah, I'm for it. So a false albacore is basically like it's a baby tuna fish, but they act exactly the same. The tail is, when you pick this thing up, they're just going nuts. It's like handling a shrunken tuna fish. I've always wondered, like, what happened? Like, how do they rope the tails there? Well, when you pick up the tail, it's like holding like a baseball bat.
Yeah.
It's super hard tail, and I'm like, well, okay, that's how they rope it. But these fish, you were going out with these little they're called epoxy jigs, which is like a plastic rain minnow basically, and just like mackerel, you would see just a little bit of breaking, and you chase them, and then that school was here, there, which is wild. We chase these things all day, and we're casting at them. I think we caught maybe 10. But when they hook up, dude, the pound. I was about to talk about this with you earlier when we were fishing, and I didn't want to ruin the story, but pound for pound, that is definitely the fastest, hardest fighting fish I've ever caught.
Really?
Oh yeah, easily, dude. It's a tuna. It's a tuna fish. They're called false albacores, false tuna fish, and they just pull fucking drag so hard. If you're using like a little 6.6 rod, but yeah, it was incredible. But I didn't get a puppy drum down there.
Was Bonita the fish we were thinking of?
Bonita.
Yeah.
Yes.
And they're the good eating ones, right? I think that's the one we caught.
I'm pretty sure Bonita or
we were getting specks, and I hooked into one of those, and it was the same size as speck, 20, 22 inch fish, and yeah, that was a lot of fun. Those little things can fight too.
They look just like tuna, don't they?
Yeah, they look like little tuna, and they turn like gold once how fish change color. By the time it was on the deck and we took the picture, it was like really bright gold looking.
That's how mahi are. Once you get them on the boat,
they turn black. They look beautiful the first minute you take them out of the water. You better get your picture really quick, because once you put them in the box and take them out, you're like, what did we catch?
I remember catching mahi when I was younger. We'd go out in like a head boat in North Carolina. Like it'd be like 10 people going out for like a bottom fishing thing, and then they'd be like, everyone had caught their limit of little red snappers or something, and they'd be like, all right, we're gonna float a couple off the a couple balloons off the back for these mahi, and whatever. We brought in 2 or 3, but they're really cool. And they're it's super weird how you catch them. It's like sometimes the people take like a sheet of plywood out in the middle of the ocean,
I've heard about that.
And they'll hang, you see like a grass ball. There's mahi under them. I don't know if they like the shade, just that little bit of temperature difference or whatever. But mahi also, when you hook one, so they swim in pairs. It's their mating partner. I don't know if they're like fucking penguins or
they'll follow each other up.
Yeah. They follow each other up, and you can go out and catch a second one. It's kind of sad when you think about it. I know it's a fish, but it's like, oh, you just stole that fish's wife or husband away from him. And
just get the other one, and then
if you catch a mahi,
that one's coming home. So
yeah, exactly. You're keeping mahi. You don't throw them back. I don't think the population's hurt by any means, but no, they're definitely a cool fish. Let's circle back to what not to do. So if we're reflecting, what did you do wrong in your first year?
The biggest thing was not getting in with the local knowledge. I mean, I don't want to disparage against Bass Pro and things like that, but there's so much equipment that I bought that's kind of useless.
Bass Pro is helpful for a lot of things, but when it comes to light tackle stripers,
right? We're talking
garbage.
Specifically light tackle stripers.
Yeah.
Their jigs are garbage. Their plastics are, in my opinion, somebody can argue. There are so many great, as I said, I know Bustum Baits, BKD.
Well, I like supporting local, but in this is and sometimes you're willing to take a hit for local stuff just to support local. No, the truth is the local companies make incredible baits.
Yeah.
and
I mean, I've got my jig. Like I bought so many crap jigs. Like, oh, you get a half-ounce jig head, and you get and it's sort of right, but the hooks aren't right. The shanks aren't the long. They're not, it's just off by a little bit, and then you can get with jigged up customs.
Yeah,
jig heads.
JR customs.
Get with Coach jig heads. Who does anybody else make jig? That's probably where I get.
No, you got Coach, you got GI.
Oh yeah, good God, the number one thing I use, just because I love the way they look. I don't know if they work anywhere.
Well, no, they're super quality. There's a lot of great local guys. I mean, Elias is not local, but that's a great.
Well, yeah, and I don't know where Bustum Baits is like my number one. Bustum Baits now, and then
Bustum's out of Maryland. Bustum was when I was doing my tournament this year. They sent me this box. I went to I'd reached out to all these people to sponsor the tournament, for prize packages and whatnot. I reached out. They were super nice guys. And they sent me this box to the post office. I went and picked it. It had to have been like 30 pounds of bait. I mean, really? all the bait packages I sent out had so much busting bait, but they're quality bait. I mean, a lot of guys love busting bait in the bay.
Yeah, I mean, personally, they're my number one. I guess that style, like the jig style. I like them better than BKD. Some people love BKD. Yeah. I just like the way the Bustum sets up on the hook better.
Everyone's got their own.
Yeah, but last year the Z-Man, like the 5-inch paddle tails, were just. I can't say how, and I don't even know where they're out of. Are they not? Is that a big?
I was going to interject and say the only thing that I'll buy from Bass Pro is Z-Mans.
Yeah, they just were. Wow, they were great. Yeah. So
it's also it's Z-Man.
Well, you got to go to the fish too. So you have a great lure. If you're not on the fish, good luck.
Sometimes it doesn't matter. I think Z-Man should make like a step down from that plastic. Have their plastic they do now that fight off bluefish. Yeah, but have their same molds with just a normal plastic.
Yeah, good luck. Because once you get it on, that's it. Or if you can get it on the hook.
Exactly.
Anyone that's used Z-Mans knows exactly what we're talking about.
You got to go to the asshole of the Z-Man and shove it over its forehead.
Now, the good thing is it'll never break off. It will do crazy shrinky stuff, if you just put it open box. But yeah, I bought so much, quote unquote Bass Pro, just big rods. This was
the Penn Battle too, and you mentioned that
everybody's
on the boat
got
today.
Penn Battle too.
Yeah, and you were like, yeah, I got all these rods I'm trying to sell. I'm like what? Because I'm thinking I'll buy it. I always buy your old shit, and you're like the Penn Battle too. So I'm like, oh dude, I got
and I'm not even trying to. I would just give it away to like, I want to find kids and just be like, hey, here you go, here's some fishing, because it's never going to get used again. If I did do it, there's so many other rods I have that could function the same. Now, if you're just starting out in light tackle, I thought like there's bay rods and there's bass rods. You can use bass rods in the bay. You're probably going to, and the eyes and the guides might not be, great for it, but you'll get by. And it's much better to use one of those.
You talking about like bait caster rods?
No, I mean just bass rods, like anything that's bad. Just go get a Johnny Morrison 6.6 or 7 foot.
Yeah.
No, so I sold a lot of my bass rods, thinking I need bay rods for rockfish. It's just completely backwards of what I should have done.
Yeah.
I should have just taken those, put braid on the reels, and you probably will destroy your reel. I wouldn't do it with expensive reels if you're. And I was using all bait casters, so they would have got gummed up with salt eventually. But things like that, like total wrong equipment, not knowing like the local companies. I mean, you got Steve Fogel and Backyard Customs. You got JLS rods. These rods are made to do
old 87.
Yeah, what we do, and they work so much better than I think because they're tailored to it. They know exactly what you're going to probably snap jigging or doing, and they just work better. So I bought so much equipment that's just. I mean, my basements to me, it's useless.
Yeah. Oh no, I've seen all your gear. I use when I go on your boat. I come home with some. It's
Yeah, you were famous for either losing jigs or.
I don't know. No, I'm not famous for losing. I'm famous for stealing jigs on accident.
Yeah,
if I borrow them, I leave them on my rod, and it's like I'm not going to cut it off. It looks nice.
Yeah, you definitely in the beginning were very light on tackle, very light on like the light tackle stuff. And then all of a sudden, when you decided to follow in Brad's footsteps, you bought so much light tackle gear, you just went nuts.
Oh yeah, right.
And actually, I went nuts too, but I should have done that first. And I should have. Actually, the biggest piece of advice is if you want to do light tackle, get on one of these charters with Jamie, Brad. Do you know any other name?
Walleye Pete.
Walleye Pete. You can go to jigthebay.com. I think there's a bunch of links on the bottom.
Yeah. No, and they're all great captains. And to be honest with you, if you go on one of these guys' boats, you might as well be on the other because they have a network that's fantastic. When you're out on the boat with these guys, they're talking, they're working very hard to find fish for you guys. A couple of the other captains I've seen out there. Who's the Australian guy? They're a fish with Weaver. I've seen him, and I hear he's the nicest dude in the world. He's either British or Australian. He's got an accent, but apparently he's the nicest dude ever. iFishMaryland.com.
Yeah, that's another one.
That is what is his name? God, I don't know, but he catches a lot of fish, and I think he's out there doing catfish charters right now.
No thanks. Hashtag slaying. Yeah, that's you talk about the network. Last year was the first time that I actually got to tell some of these people, actually captains in that network, about a couple of these things, those spots when there wasn't a boat in sight. Maybe that's how not the people I told, they wouldn't have leaked it out, but that was the first time I actually got to give information and not just. I'm talking about the upper echelon.
Yeah.
We're not in their circle. It's normally just getting little hints from them. That was the first time I was like, look, nobody knows about this yet, and got to give some information back. It felt good because it felt like I'd been taking information for years and not knowing what to do with it.
That's an excellent piece of advice. I mean, and really, my thing is, you said you were talking to Brad or you're talking to Jamie. It's like, these guys work very hard to, and so do we. I'm an aspiring captain. I'm a captain in training, you could say. I'm out there. I fish every single day. I put in the hours. I'm not where these guys are yet, but. You fish for 5 years by yourself, striking out, and then you're not just going to give some dude on Facebook some information. When these guys take you on a charter, they don't mind sharing the information with you and teaching you because you're paying for it. Which
right.
It's a business. They have a skill set. They've put in the hours to show you this. Which is I don't blame anybody who's not like. Hey, yeah, no, they're at Tolchester at on this tide biting on this. No, most of these guys out there will give you, like you said, very small bits of information, enough to get you excited to go fishing and strike out. Yeah, and
the kind of information, and sometimes it's just like, hey, the incoming tide's hot in 20 feet of water. It's not. It's not like you call it.
It means nothing really.
Well, sort of. I mean, last year we definitely had one tide better than the other. We had the golden hour of the outgoing tide. We hit on so many times. So the last hour of the outgoing tide before dead tide just had beautiful days. And I don't think it's any secret that the Patapsco was just on fire last year. You could tell by the amount of there's boats.
Which was weird. You and me went over there. We had a good day there.
Yeah, that's
so
where
you caught a 30 there.
That's it was 33. That's still my personal best in. What's my personal best stripe? I caught one bigger trolling on a charter slip, but that doesn't count. I just happened to grab the rod.
Yeah.
That's the biggest fish I jigged, and good God, that thing it did not want to come to the boat. And that was just at some random spot in the back of the Patapsco that I had seen some bottom structure back there and marked some fish earlier in the year, probably about, a month earlier.
Well, you told me before you hooked that fish.
Yeah,
you were like, this is kind of a fishy spot. I want to give this a shot before we roll to the next
spot.
spot.
And that's what I'm saying about growing and learning more. Like year 1, year 2, I couldn't have done that. I couldn't have told you, I think this is a fishy spot where there's some good... I didn't know. I was like, the fishy spots where all the boats were. It's like, hey, there's boats over there. They know something. Let's go. And, every now and then it's still kind of, if we see a bunch of boats in the middle of nowhere, and
there's
especially
usually something going on.
Especially light tackle boats, not the bait guys. Yeah. But when you see a couple center consoles, nose to nose, and you see birds flying around, go over there.
Yeah, drive straight through the birds.
Yeah. You put your trolling gear out as wide as possible, and you do 7 miles an hour with a Trump flag.
Which is that's how you catch max. It
is what you do. It's just if people are light tackle, please be respectful of light tackle.
Tell the listeners all your mac tips. You did get good at catching max.
Yeah. I said earlier I don't like trolling, and mostly that means rockfish trolling, big heavy trolling. But I do really like this lighter. These are like size 20 reels. Normally we put 3 or 4 rods out.
So what's size 20? Is that a...
It's like, the 5.0 is like as big as this microphone, so it's kind of down. And they're like my Penn Squalls. I keep 4 of them on the boat all the time. We like tackle unless
for
it's
plan
like,
B.
Yeah, bad conditions, or if it's just really not hot. But we didn't go to that much. But the mackerels are fun because you get the downplaners, number 1, number 2 downplaners. You got a leader.
Explain what those are.
The downplaners are a little.
It's not what you guys think. It's not a giant planing board.
No, it's probably like a quarter the size of a phone, and it just it goes down. It holds the line down about 12, 15
depending
feet,
on the number 1 or number 2.
Depending on number 1, number 2. Get number 1, number 2. Do not buy number 3. It'll as soon as you hook it up, it's going in, so it'll break your rod in half or your line first. But then you got a leader, swivel, and then these little tiny Clark spoons. It's hilarious.
So this little planer, I'll kind of elaborate.
What is it called? Is Sea Strike? Sea Strike number 1, number 2.
Yeah, you literally get them at Walmart. Yeah. So, but what it does is it's a little, like you said, it's probably about half the size, about a quarter the size of the phone. So it's on like a swivel almost.
Yeah.
And the pressure of the boat keeps your bait down. But when a fish bites, it turns this planer board back. Yes. And allows the fish to swim free.
It's the exact opposite of normal fishing because the rods stay bent the whole time until it flips up. Because once the planer's holding the rod down and once the planer flips, it goes flat and the fish will actually go. Because if you're trolling for max, you're trolling over 6 miles an hour, 6 to 7 miles an hour.
Which is crazy, like to think about it.
Yeah, and they chase it and they will. And these Clark spoons are only they're little diamonds. They rotate really fast. And the funny thing is, while we're trolling for max, we've caught some great rockfish, on accident. It's just all of a sudden, like a 30-inch rockfish. We're like, gee.
At 7 miles an hour.
Yeah, at 7 miles an hour. We caught 7 species, including a skate.
I was there
that
day.
Yeah.
And was that no, that was the day that we... Are you talking about all in one day or in total?
No, total. We caught 7. I mean, we caught perch at 7 miles an hour, which is just, when you reel it in, you're just laughing. And when you get into school with the max or you get on the rockfish like this, it's kind of like doing a search bait. All of a sudden, it's frantic where it's one rod, the other rod, you reset it, this one. I mean, you just have things going. So it's not like this long trolling where nothing. And I think because your speed is up, it feels like it's faster. And you're normally not doing it unless you know that they're there. And this was all around Thomas Point up to the bay was where the max normally, the mouth of the Severn. I mean, these are known, and people are pretty loose lip with max spots.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like
they're kind of like when the meat sides go out and then they limit out. They either go for max or they go for perch. They're trying to fill a cooler because, like you said, you ask somebody what's the limit on max. Like, keep all you want.
Yeah, and actually we didn't keep many. After I ate it, I was like, it's fun to catch them. And but yeah, those Clark spoons I have thrown out on, when we go out to do light tackle, and sometimes we get out there and it's a 2 to 3 foot waves. Like, it's supposed
you
to
get out and the wind picks up and the forecast was wrong. That's when you pull out the Clark spoons.
Yeah, and we'll throw out 2 rods and we'll drive around and hope, or through a tide change, where it's like, all right, we can either sit here and do nothing, which I'm sure people can catch fish on a tide change. But my experience is it's pretty bad, where we could just drive around, eat lunch, or that's normally how it works out. When we fish, we try to go out and get one tide, take a break, and normally do a little bit of the second tide, and then that's it. That's kind of like a 6-hour day.
But you stumbled across this. That's what was kind of crazy. Is like, I'm not going to say I saw the Mac. That's why Steve can catch Macs. No, that was just a start of like, holy shit, there's Macs here. And then I guess you kind of figured it out. I'm like, this is kind of weird. I've never done it myself, gone out with it, because I don't have the gear for that. But it is pretty neat.
It's just fun to do. So by that time, it's
a different fish, and that's kind of exciting to see that.
Yeah, and again, by that time, it's late summer. I'm kind of pinned to the upper bay unless one of my friends buys a center console and now can move all over the bay.
That's me.
Yeah, there we go. Or, I said I still pay for light tackle charters, mainly with Brad, which I'm happy to do. And I think everyone should do that, keep doing that. I learned something new, and it's not just, it's great to see other people fish and catch a lot of fish. But yeah, the Macs were just different. It was late summer, looking for a change. And I think during that time, I don't know if that's during the 2-week shutdown we had. It's probably close in the temperature.
It might have been, but also, that's the nice thing is, like you said, it's a change of pace. And although you caught one rockfish, trolling at 7 miles an hour, you start trolling 7 miles an hour during a shutdown, because we're not going to stop fishing, but we can do our best to stay away from known methods to catch rockfish. Well, if you're trolling 7 miles an hour, the likelihood of catching a rockfish is little to none, which is a good thing.
I could not believe when we hooked the first couple. I was like, wow, this is really, really weird. And then the perch, I think we caught a spot at 7 miles. I think it's one of the 7.
Yes, I think I was there for the spot.
A skate. It was just like, this is...
The skate is what's crazy, because you would think that's a bottom feeder, and we were in deep water. We were in the middle of the channel.
I mean, and you were there... It was witnessed. I'm not making it.
But that day was hairy. I remember going out. We took my buddy Bill from work, and we should not have been out that day. That was known as the Great Turn. Yeah,
where and I'm definitely, as I said, I'm only 4th year of operating a boat, and it was so bad that we had, I don't think I'm exaggerating, a 6-foot
swells.
6-foot swells following, and I told everybody, I was like, I got to make this turn. And if I mess it up...
Well, before you said that, when you're captain in your own boat, a bad thing to say to the crew is, this might be life jacket weather. Because that's when, and it was real that day.
Yeah.
You get 6-foot swells in a 23-foot boat, you're like, eh.
And I'm sure there's people saying, well, you should have your life jackets on. And, well, we normally don't, but...
Yeah. We also usually don't go out in 6-foot swells.
But it didn't start, by the way, it didn't start out that way. We came out from, we come out the cut of Hart Miller on the... And it just got weird. Remember, it came out. It wasn't supposed to be there. It wasn't like a horrible forecast day.
It was supposed to be snotty, but not.
Yeah, it was just
shitty.
Sometimes that wind energy and the tide just picks up, and it creates a weird thing. And again, I'm still learning. I remember somebody told me, he's like, just time on the water, time on water. I was like, I want to shortcut everything. I think I can Google my way to being a better fisherman, better boat operator.
No, it's time on the water.
Yeah, it is so much. There is no shortcuts to this. At least if you're running your own boat, there's so many little things you learn what they are. You learn what bait sounds like, bait smells like, bait looks like, and you learn how to see it further.
It's weird. Yeah, you'll be driving at 30 miles an hour, and everyone goes like, you start looking around, you're like, this smells like there was just a feeding frenzy here. And
we've been out on these light captain chart or light tackle captains that they're just driving also. Nope, over them, like no one sees anything, but they know what they see, and it's not something obvious like you get good at spotting bait hundreds of yards away.
A small disturbance
in the water. And again, it sounds easy, like, oh, well, I'll just look for small disturbance until you've seen it far away. It's not like you've run right up on it. You get lucky. Yeah. But it's spotting the things far away and just getting better, knowing what to go chase and what not to chase.
Nothing's more disappointing than rolling up on a school of boiling bait and there's nothing under it, and you're like, oh god, it looks so beautiful, and then there's just nothing there. That being said, commercial break number 2. After the commercial break, we've welcomed another guest into the room.
Yeah, we've picked up a dog.
Yeah, she needs to be quiet. All right, so I guess the next place I want to go is it's 2021, and what does Steve want to do in 2021? What's your goals? Hey, quit looking at your feet.
I got it. I just want to continue 2020. I can't remember any trips that didn't result in fish last year. And all it got so good where we just were so confident when we went out that we were going to put people on fish.
Yeah.
And we took kids out. I just felt like it was so reassuring to not be totally nervous that we're just going to get out and we're just going to get on fish.
Yeah. You may have a slow start but a strong finish. And dude, that's it. You're just like me. I've heard you talk about it out loud, but when I go out, it's like I don't necessarily need to throw the rod. I like to catch a couple fish, but it's almost as rewarding to go out and find the fish.
Yeah, I love putting people on fish, especially ones
who don't do it much.
A lot.
Yeah, putting Novak on fish. Like Novak, you've seen this before. It's
like I got to take out my friend Steve that got me back into fishing. So I fished with him for 2 years.
Steve Lombardi, the bass boat guy.
Yeah, so he's since had 2 children. So I was like, had his first kid. I was like, bye, see you in 6 years.
Yeah.
And he really has fallen off because, of course, you got 2 new kids. You got to deal with that. So when I took him out, and I'd take him out once before, and he got 1 fish, but that was it. And I think he's been out 3 times when I put. And the second time was nothing. And this time I'm like, hey man, I kept texting him. It's hot. It's just ridiculous every time. Ridiculous. I'm posting pics.
Is he a decent fisherman?
Yeah, great bass, and he's loves finesse fishing. He doesn't like the crankbaits and stuff, and that's it. He loves soft plastic. So we went out, and he's like, I'm gonna bring my bass rods, and they have fluoro, and I was like, probably not the best. I was like, I got plenty of stuff, but whatever. My first cast, mid-20s. My second cast, I was like, they're here, and then I just wanted him to catch. And then he caught one of my rods. He's like, I'm gonna catch him with this fluoro. I was like, okay, this is what I said before.
But you could do it.
I bought all the wrong stuff by trading in on my bass stuff for heavy bait. No. You could use your bait. It worked. So he caught him, and then we just started getting on the birds and and I was so happy. I was like, this is great that I got put you on this because, with the fact he hasn't gotten to get out again. And it was I was more ecstatic about him catching fish than me ever catching fish.
And you don't see that with largemouth fishing. Some guys love it, and I understand it. Every once in a while, I get into some largemouth, I got some ponds, and it's super fun. But you don't. There's no schools of largemouth that come through with breaking birds where you're just slamming fish for 45
you're just
minutes.
You're looking for that giant, and
the giant's not that big.
Yeah, and I never got great at bait. I maybe caught like 6 or 7 bass in a day, and that was like, that was fun. They were kind of spaced out, and I mean, when I say we've caught over 100 fish with 3 people in a boat, it's not easily that you lose count multiple days doing
all
this.
safe releases too.
Yeah. As I said, I might keep just a couple a year, or if somebody's on the boat, 1 or 2. But everything gets released safely. We're in and out as quick as possible. Take the pictures of the good one. I mean, we've got to the point now. If it's not picture worthy, and it's got to be mid-20s to at least take a picture. Especially with me, Harambe. If I hold up, I
love that you call yourself that now.
Yeah, I told you I'll make fun of myself more than anybody. Leprechaun. So it's funny. I've held up fish, high 20s, and people tell me it's not even a keeper. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, I'm a little bit bigger
even with me, if I hold up the I'm 5'5", 5'6" in heels. If I hold up a fish, the cameras just don't do the fish justice.
Yeah, it never does come until you get those giant.
Yes.
Once you see the rockfish's head at a different angle
compared
than the rest,
to a human head.
Yeah, but when you hold up a fish, it's all linear. It's in one line until you get the one where its head turns up and that the gill plate sticks out, and it's like, there we go. Yeah. Now we know what you got there. And I've only had 2 of them on light tackle for me. So.
Yeah. And with the biggest being 33, you said?
Yeah, I got.
I'm not talking shit on you.
No.
Until last year, the biggest I had was a 29.
Yeah, and that was still summer. I mean, that was before the fall migration. That's the summer. Yeah. The summer in the Patapsco.
Was that summer when you caught that? I thought that was fall.
It was summer.
It was September, so I guess that's summer.
Yeah, it was before the migration. And I always wondered. I was like, these are the things I still don't know. Was a 33-inch fish in the Patapsco area in the summer?
Was it normal?
Or was that a migration in, or does that never let? I would love to know that kind of.
If we caught more than one, then I would consider it the migration.
It was the only one just chilling it. Yeah, I didn't see anybody else. I'm sure there's people, but plenty of people started getting into migration maybe 3 weeks later, 4 weeks later. So it could have been an early one. I don't know.
Yeah.
I definitely don't claim to be an expert on any of that. I sort of know the general guidelines of when they come and go, and I know that when they get up in the flats, when they leave the flats, try to catch them on the way out most of the time. So yeah.
So what about the redfish goals, dude? We're gone in a month.
Yeah, we're going
in a month or two here.
I'm torn because we really do. We love to joke. I mean, we kind of got like that Boston type of sense of humor. If you're not getting made fun of, then somebody doesn't like you. Like we rag on each other.
Oh no, I think I said on the podcast last week, you're an easy person to root against.
Oh yeah, and you did a lot of rooting last week. Even Heather, my wife's like, Jesus, how many times again? And Novak's like, well, we said we rag on each other. I was like, no, you just said you rag on Steve.
Yeah,
I said that's why I had to slip in a couple things about, are they baby seagulls? There's a couple things that we could. Ask Matt how many hats he has left. I've personally watched like 6 hats go off you into the bed. No, like so we rag on when we're casting 200-300 times a day. Somebody's going to cast with the bail closed and smash the side of the boat. Like that's the fun. And you're not going to hear the end of it.
It's you. It's not us.
No, it's not me. No, it's actually been Dave, like one of the better fishermen, did it the last 2 times.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Don't you? Like what happened? Everybody's like, no.
That's our ongoing joke with him. It's just like just the whoo. He always gets it on the third hit, but it's like there he is.
Well, that was when I caught that 30. The same thing. I was like, is there? And then it hit. But no, we're going to do that redfish trip. And part of me, because we like to joke with each other, would love to see you not get a fit. But no, I really want us to be super successful. And
well, my goal would be.
I mean, I want you to put us on, and hopefully, and if you don't, this is your first time trying this area.
Yeah, everyone would be like, okay, well, yeah, I'll say this: if we see redfish, I'll be happy, because not only that, a lot of times you go down there and we talked about this on the Brad podcast, episode 2. That hummingbird is insane, man. We went out today looking for perch and catfish or whatever would bite in the flats. It's closed down for striper. But dude, it's so clear what's out there. You can see a crab trap that's probably been down there for 10 years. But when these reds come in, it's unmistakable on the hummingbird.
Yeah, I got to see it with Brad, and it was one of the craziest things. Oh, actually, we were red fishing, and we caught a striper migration. Weren't looking for it.
Yeah.
And so I got to watch a 48-inch get caught right in front. I actually, I'm the king of losing stuff. I hooked up, and we were using swim baits, just like paddle. What do you call this? Wild eye storm things. The 6-inch just paddle tail.
Yeah, the Walmart paddle tails.
Yeah, where you actually use
which are fine.
And I got mine. Starts going and pulled on it too hard, and then that was it. But then I got to watch Doug fight one forever and bring it in. So I got to see a 48-inch brought in. So I want to go, and I want to see that again. Whether it's you, me, Chris, or who else is going? Who's our fourth party?
Sean.
Sean
from Podcast One.
Yeah,
this whole thing's kind of come full circle. Like everybody we talk about, we went from Novak last week to you.
Yeah, well, this was not supposed to. I didn't want to get right on the heels of Novak.
Yeah, I think it's.
I got to follow that guy.
It's a linear timeline here. We're dealing with it. It kind of works out. And I'm gonna have you and Chris back on immediately after our redfish trip, because, like I said, I kind of want to do that.
I'm hoping that's going to be a great just recap with pictures just being
talking
posted.
If I would have had a podcast last year talking about the 13 fish day, it would have been a good podcast.
Oh God, I might have hung myself. If I listened to that last year, it was hard but no, I really. But even if we don't do great, we went sight fishing for cobia and struck out, and I still don't remember that as being a bad day.
That's right, you were there.
Yeah.
Yeah, we saw one. We saw
one, and it's like, ooh, we saw a cobia. Looked like that's the first cobia I'd ever seen. Looked like a shark, and I'm actually nervous to go cobia fishing.
Cobia fishing,
after Brad yelled at you.
That was a redfish trip.
Real? When you're casting the jigs?
I missed a cast onto a school of 1,000 redfish. I got so excited that I just laser casted it. He's like, just get it, just loft it out there. He's like, cast as far as you can, but get a nice loft on it. I just took it and just straight lasered it. I do that. It's so, when you see these schools of these massive fish, you can't think. You know,
Well, what's funny, you caught a little backlash for that. Something he would never do to a new fisherman, but we've been out on his boat many times. I remember the night that Brad went from, Captain Brad to, he's just one of us. When we were at Days, he's like, he's getting in the fray of joking around. Like, so I love that now, we have fun, and it's catch fish, don't catch. It goes so much better when you get. But it's not like I sit back and think, "Oh my God, we only saw one fish. It was a horrible day."
No, it was a good day, and it was an understandable day. It was poor conditions for cobia. When you're fishing for cobia, I went cobia fishing a lot last year. You have to have not only sun. You have to you have a small window during the day where it's straight above you, and. It was I want to say maybe 45 minutes where I stood on the front of the boat and I could actually see cobia probably I don't know maybe 60 to 70 yards away. I would see schools of stingrays with cobia mixed in, and you could tell it was a cobia. But you had that 45-minute window, and then after that, the distance from where you saw the cobia started shrinking in. I mean, there were many times last year where I was standing on the front of the boat with Dave, and we were going, maybe 4 to 6 miles an hour, and next thing we knew, I was like, cobia. I'm pointing down. We were running over cobia. I mean, that's why those dudes have towers. They can just see so much further. But we did well with cobia down there. I mean, we saw a lot of cobia. Thing about cobia is you can go out and find 50 to 100 in a day, and maybe 3 will be hungry. Or you go out on a day and all 100 are just losing their mind for any ham sandwich you throw in the water. But no, that's definitely another goal you should set this year is catching a cobia.
Yeah, I mean, the good thing is this is all within 2 hours of where we were at. Where we live, you can rock
3.5 hours.
Okay, well,
yeah, ish. There are sometimes the cobia will come within 2 hours.
They've what was it? They caught one at Thomas Point. They're like, what?
Yeah, what? No, I think they didn't just catch one. There was a fleet.
Right, but if you're going to go target them, probably not the best idea to go to Thomas Point.
Yeah.
I mean, south of Solomon's, way down there. That's even further if you're really looking for them. But yeah, I'd like to catch a real redfish this year on an artificial. It's always a goal to just keep expanding the your board of fish, keep scratching them off, and it feels so good when you get a new species. Like, oh yeah, let's scratch this one off.
Well, that's what the Chesapeake has to offer is all these crazy things. And like last year, like the bigger cobia that I caught, I think it was 49 or 49 and a half. It was fairly far up in the bay for what I thought cobia would come. I was like, holy shit, why is this fish here? It was not far from a normal striper spot. But yeah, no, there's so many cool fish. And, there are puppy drum that come up here. Apparently, there used to be a lot more puppy drum than there are now.
Used to be a lot more everything until now.
Yeah. But, one population that seems to be doing okay, or 2 populations seem to be doing okay, are redfish and cobia. And hopefully they stay that way. Because, there's a slot limit for redfish. And you don't really catch, in Maryland per se, or Maryland or Virginia, you don't catch slot redfish, really. They're either puppies or they're bulls.
And what's crazy is that's a great eating fish, and it's turned into a sport fish, which is not because there's a lot of catch and release like tarpon or something like that you can eat and you no desire to eat it, but redfish is actually a great fish to eat. So it shows that slot limit did kind of work.
That's what rebounded. I may be wrong, but I'm pretty sure there was a shortage on redfish in Texas. And they changed the status from, a slot limit fish to a sport fish, and then the population shot back up. Which maybe that's what we need to do here with rockfish. And you know what was an interesting fact with David Sikorsky when he was on here? Apparently, the moratorium was open for catch and release.
Oh yeah. I mean,
but I didn't know that. So I wouldn't have cared.
Well, yeah, of course we wouldn't, and the people we fish wouldn't. I'm sure there's a lot of people that have careers and boats and boat payments and mortgages, all based on the fact that they can take out 6 to 12 people every single day. And I get it. I can't argue from that. They got their argument. Yes, me and you and a bunch of our friends wouldn't really care. But there's a lot of people
I didn't know you could catch. I thought the moratorium was just completely shut down. Did you know that?
I knew they were still catch, but catch and release was like. Light tackle wasn't a huge thing in the bay.
Yeah, it
I mean,
wasn't.
if you read the old books on the bay, I mean, I've got some old books that my uncle gave, and they're talking about using steel wire, big giant, steel wire to the big, what are they, cripple owl wire, like the huge spoons. Talking about that, trolling them up and down the bay.
Like the Tony, the Maja, what are they
the
called?
giant, well, yeah. And I mean, I read, because I've read Kimbrough's book, and he even talks about that. I think he came from Tennessee. I'm probably making stuff up now. He came from out, a little further west, and he's like, man, they're just using such heavy stuff in this bay. And his book shows like he was using little sinker weights with crankbait on it, to get it down, and like that's where light tackle. He's like, this light tackle will work. So I don't think it was even like there just was. People were just like, oh, there's no rockfish. We're not going for it. I'm sure there was plenty of people that were still fishing.
Yeah,
probably a lot of
who wants
stuff.
to go out and troll? I'm saying, who wants to go out and troll a trophy rockfish and throw it back? A lot of those guys going out there trolling
some people do, and I mean, some people are posting pictures. Not right now, but a couple weeks ago. I guess it's fun. I don't know. I said to each their own. I can't say what you should. Said there's hundreds, maybe 1,000 people out on the bay in boats using cut bait, and I'm saying that's not fun.
But also, there's a ton of people out there, and that's now. So we keep talking about how we're progressing, and every podcast I feel like we circle back to the beginning more or less. Is there's a lot of people out there that all those people out there soaking bait, that may be their first year.
Oh yeah, there's so many people starting to. Yeah. I guess you do get kind of tunnel vision. Like, well, I'm here. Why isn't everybody else? So yes, there's a lot of people that don't know, and I try to now pass it on to help whoever. I'm saying, try this lure, try this technique. Watch these YouTube. There's so many good YouTube videos. Said you need time on water to figure this stuff out, but you can prep yourself with a lot of light tackle
and a lot of false hope too.
Yes, because you'll watch so
these
many people.
Trips you and me have gone out just with like, we did our research this week. We watched a couple YouTube videos. They're over there in Eastern Bay, and we're over there and crushed it. They're not there that day.
Yeah, and that's why I always got nervous. You always said like, I'm going to start this. I mean, you've been saying this for 3 years. I'm going to do this podcast. I was like, whatever.
I'm gonna do what?
You're going to start this podcast, and you're going to bring. And a lot of people say they're going to do so. Okay, maybe. And you actually did it, which is great. But you always talked about bringing cameras. And it's like, if you bring a camera, then we're not going to catch a thing.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, well, it's that old like, if
you don't catch fish, you're going to blame the cameras.
Right.
Yeah.
No, so I'd actually become. We're going to do trips this year. With the cameras on, and I'm pretty confident that there's the kiss of death that we're going to catch a lot of good videos of a lot of good fish this year.
That's why I built the wood table.
So you can do
it. Good Lord.
Why
would you ever say that?
Why wouldn't you? I mean,
dude, that's why. I mean, I would have so much more content, of the catch and release season this year if I wasn't. I was deathly afraid to bring the cameras with me, and I know exactly what you're saying. It would not have mattered if the cameras were there or not. When we were out there during fishing for my tournament out there, and my neighbor Sean caught that 40, I was like, why don't we have the cameras? Because that 40 wasn't. I mean, that was the biggest fish we caught that day, but there was a lot that were very close to that.
Right.
And I was like, man, why couldn't I have the cameras?
I'm all for the. You know what? Well, as long as we start bringing them on every trip, then they just become part of it.
Exactly.
But if you say we're going out to kill them today, we're bringing the cameras today, then it's like, oh god.
Yeah. We're taking the cameras because we're going to catch.
Right, and that might change your behavior. I really don't know. I'm pretty confident saying that going into this year without any results yet that I'm going to find them. We're going to find. I mean, it's not just me. We got several people in my boat that are very competent. Know the conditions, know how we're going to work it, and yeah, I'd be shocked if we don't. Now we might not get. As I said, we had 3 days last year that people don't get, so I don't think we're going to get those 3 days.
Yeah.
Maybe we do, maybe we don't. I mean, I've been on other people's charter boats and I've had great days, but not that day. For the striped bass, for the rockfish. Now you've had them with the red, so I'm really hoping for that reds. Really.
So. This is just my curiosity because you have a walk around. I've made the change back to center console. Your next boat, what's it going to be?
It'd be a center right away. I mean, when we bought, again, this is another. I wouldn't say it's a mistake.
I went with the same thought process you did. Okay,
yeah,
I have a wife that I love taking out. You have a wife you love taking out, and it's like when you buy the walk around. First of all, you're like. We bought our walk-arounds not knowing anything, and we're like, these kind of look like the boats that people catch fish on.
Yeah, and the thought is, well, you got this cabin to get out of the sun. And in reality, you can't go underneath there. It's 100 degrees in there. It just becomes a storage area. We do. I don't just fish on my boat. I have a walk around, so we do the the swim up days, but you could do that on the center console just fine. And if you really want to get shade, you can get one of them flip up fronts if it really bothered you that much.
Yeah.
But my boat's been fantastic, and no, it's been. If you get a boat, you're going to shell out money no matter what. Like things break, but so far the things that broke have been reasonable. So to me, they say the best days, the first day and the last day. Well, I've had a lot of great days, and I don't regret buying the boat. It hasn't been. I think it's been a positive. So if you're on the fence, buy the boat.
Yeah,
but I would get the center. I would. So my next would probably be like somewhere between a 23 to 25 inch. 25 inch. Good God. That'd be a small boat. 25-foot center.
I want a remote control boat.
You got the drone. So that's all we need. No, I really think the centers are it's night and day when you're on a center and you can just move.
The fishing room.
Because I've been on a 25-foot with 5 people, and you're not even bumping into each other. As long as you got, you're on the corners and one guy's operating the boat, it's fine.
I was weird at, I just bought my boat, and I think I told you earlier, I took 6 people on there. I'm like, this is gonna be a nightmare. It's a nightmare if 1 or 2 of the people don't know how to cast. Other than that, you can reach down and flip up your bait or whatever. But if you got somebody on there that is like all right, I'm casting.
Yeah, I've taken a few people out like that. Somebody that brought a rod on my. So I took out the first couple of years. If you wanted to fish, we were fishing because I wanted to go out.
Yeah.
And I never want to go out by myself. Where I go, in the mid bay, I'm still not great with the. But I'd love having a second, third person on there. So I'd taken it, and then somebody brought up. To say it was a stiff rod is it was stiffer than most trolling rods, and he had to cast it like a lacrosse stick, and that was the only time I'm like, all right, man, we're done. No more. Like, if you don't have the proper equipment, then just leave it at home.
Just call out Julian. It's Julian, right? Yeah. Does he watch this podcast?
I don't.
Have you told him about it?
He fell off. Oh, he disappeared. Like, people come and go. Some people rotate in, rotate out. They show back up.
Well, when you met me, you were like, "You're the most normal person I have on my boat," and I'm like, "Wow, I'm crazy." So that's
I was joking. Like, I fish all the time, and sometimes you get a couple hours notice of, hey, we're going tomorrow at 7 a.m. The people that are normally available aren't the ones with young kids at home. Everything's going great.
Stable jobs,
stable jobs. Everybody's happy. I get a lot of people, but it's the island of misfit tour. But everyone I bring in, well, not everybody. Vast majority of them, no matter what they got going on in their personal life, man, they can fish. Yeah. I've got a lot of guys.
And even if it's a weird person or a crazy...
Oh, we get some good stories out of those guys.
We get some good stories, and they're all good people.
Yeah,
I say that on every single podcast. The Fishing Network is great. I mean... I think we mentioned Jangers on the last podcast, and that dude's a nutcase. But
he is, but
he knows he's a nutcase, but he's also a decent dude.
He's a great dude,
and he can fish his ass off.
You give him an X, he's gonna love this, man. You give that boy an X wrap, and he will just catch fish all day in places that it shouldn't work. I said we're going out, we're going to do vertical jigging.
We're in 40 foot of water.
Yeah, it is not probably at the most I fish in is 28, 30 feet.
Yeah.
Maybe. And he'll bring an X wrap out. I'm like, this is stupid. Not going to work. Not even like one of the deep divers.
It's an 8-foot diver,
and just catch fish. I'm like, this is just dumb.
Some people have their ways. That's a Flats thing, though.
I know, but yeah, because early on when I met the network started with the old Susquehanna River Fishing Club, where I met a lot of those people and branched out from there. So
the stories that come from that place.
Well, yeah, I'm not getting into the club what happened with. I have no idea.
Yeah,
but a lot of the people I know either were
love it or hate it.
Love it, hate it. Part of it, but it grew. I mean, there's definitely like technicals out of that these people were. The core were in there, and then I get other people off of it that knew somebody that was in that. But
they're all decent people.
Yeah, everybody. I have not taken anybody on my boat. As soon as that we got back to shore, I'm like, whew, thank God that guy scary dude. My wife would even say, she's like, "You're taking strangers." I was like, "What are they going to do?
Dude,
what are they going to do to me on my boat?"
That's what Jess said to me when you came up, because we touched on it a couple times. So the way we met was you were out there trolling, right?
Yeah, probably.
And just burn. I think you said you burned 500 gallons of fuel before your first fish, or something along those lines.
Thank God, I don't think AOC was in office yet, because she'd be flipping out with knowing all the greenhouse emissions with no result. It was just burning gas.
Greenhouse emissions with no result.
It was so bad. It was so. I mean, I admit it. It's just totally clueless.
And I had just happened. See, this was I guess when there was. April was open for fishing in the flats, but it wasn't even April. It was May, because I had moved up here at the end of April, and I had just gone out one day, and I was just live lining perch and just stumbled into catching fish for a couple days, or a week or two. And I was posting pictures on Facebook, and you hit me up, and you were like, "Hey man, I'm striking out. Can I get some help?" And I'm not saying I was doing anything great. I was out there live lining perch, with the fleet, or the Susquehanna fleet per se. And I was like, yeah, I guess, yeah, you can come up. I'm like, yeah, I'm catching fish. I'm the best fisherman ever. I'll show you my ways. I wish I still had that footage of you.
Oh God, man, I hope that's gone.
Oh, dude, it's somewhere. I'm pretty sure I could find it, and I would love to superimpose it, but I doubt I have that kind of time for editing.
Yeah,
it was. I remember so vividly, like catching a couple fish, and then I know where you were at though. You had gone out, and you literally
so
burned
frustrating.
500 gallons of fuel from March to May. It was probably middle of May,
and I joked about being 500 into that first bass. Now, I mean, it wasn't the first. I've caught rockfish, but now we're thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, and I'm like, I can't catch a fish, and it was just getting frustrating.
Well, you called your wife, and like you were on the phone, you're like, "Babe, I caught a fish. And I'm sitting there going like,
it wasn't
what is this dude's problem? Like,
it wasn't just that I caught. For one, we were reeling in, we were done, and it was a surprise fish, and we had been out there for a while, so
it was still funny.
Maybe there was some contributing factors to the joy and the. But whatever, man, you used to jump up and down every time you caught a fish, like you scored a touchdown.
Oh yeah.
And now it's like, it is funny. I guess it's because after your 500-600 fish, it's like, okay, well, this is what we're supposed to do. It's still great. It still feel good. But yeah, there were celebratory dances when a fish was. I said when I jigged, I can tell you every fish I jigged the first couple of years, because I remember it, because there wasn't many of them.
Yeah.
And yeah, you were up fishing the Susquehanna. By the way, if you fish Middle River, Bay, Susquehanna. I remember you told me you got boat up. I was like, it's just bass up there. I had no idea like that year round some rockfish stayed up. And that's how green I was. I knew they migrated up. I was like, what, do you just fish for 2 weeks and then you're done? Because I said you bass, and you're like, I don't bass fish. I was like, well, what do you do? Like that, I didn't know. And these places are night and day. Like the Susquehanna fishing is nothing like, you just go a couple miles down to where I'm at near Middle River South. It's completely different styles, different bait profiles, I'd say. I mean, you can use some of the same stuff, but it's a different style of fishing. But I didn't know, and I came up, got one fish, and I'll never hear the end.
Was it? No, you caught a couple fish that day.
We caught some fish, but that's back when you were just live. I remember I brought plastic and one rod with a soft plastic. And you're like, it's probably not going to work up here.
Well, that time of the year wouldn't. Once the season opens back up here, like May 15th. I've gone out with soft plastics and nothing, and you throw a perch out there, and I don't know if they're getting privy to it. Like maybe they're done the spawn and they're not as aggressive, and they're really actually looking for something live with some kind of scent. I have no idea, but in May, I mean, I don't know. I guess DNR nailed it. Like they
know when to shut it down.
They know when to shut it down, open it back up. When's the best chance of somebody catching a fish?
The only thing they got wrong last year was the 2-week shutdown. That the 2 weeks prior to the shutdown, it was so boiling hot that they were 2 weeks off. I mean, I remember catching fish over. We went out. That was after we went to Tolchester, so we did great. We went the next week on another guy's boat, and if you brought a fish out of the water, it was dead. Yeah. Like there's no way you could lift it up for a split second. I mean, it was mid 80s or something. The water, it was ridiculous how hot it was.
Well, we talked about it on the podcast number 4 with Dave Sikorsky. They used to do the flats season wasn't a date; it was a water temperature, and and everyone was educated enough to. Yeah, they did some studies up here, and this I was gonna say that's the one podcast you said you didn't listen to, but what they used to do is they had a big fish pen up here. And one year they did this big study where basically you would fish near this fish pen, and they did it in all different types of water temperatures and I guess salinity levels, whatever. They took all the numbers down, and then they would release the fish in this pen. And at the end, they brought the pen up, and however many dead fish, they would do fish caught to dead fish, and they figured out that fish the striper mortality rate is much higher at. I don't know the number, and David couldn't give the number either, but I think it was like 63 or 64 degrees. So what they used to do, instead of just saying, hey, you can fish up until this date, it was fishing's wide open because weather patterns change. Like last year, it was super warm. Everyone caught a shitload of fish in March. This year we had 4 good days of fishing in March. It's the weather patterns. But yeah, so what they used to do is once the weather or the water temperatures hit like whatever the magic number, 63 or 64, whatever it was, they would, I guess, APB out and everything was shut down. And everyone was educated enough to look for that. And that makes sense to me. I don't know if they think it's too hard to reach out to people. If in my mind,
they didn't have the internet back then.
Exactly.
Now you got the internet.
Exactly.
How did they get it out back then? Like how did kids know what house to play at? Because there was just people talked. You got your information.
Yeah. I don't know if it was like a hotline you called in or what. Or maybe if you were caught out there fishing on a day where it was that and DNR could come up and get you. I don't know, but
or maybe they just come up and educate you, like, hey, this.
Yeah, it's never been easier than now to get that information out. Like, hey, season's closed. We've reached that water temperature, and you also knew when you were encroaching on that water temperature. If because if you're out here in the flats, if you're up, where we launched today. Water temperature is usually 4 degrees warmer here than it is down there, which means don't fish up here for the striper. Go down there where it's
right.
4 degrees cooler. But who knows? That all makes sense to me. I don't know why they don't do that anymore. But
them trying to predict the weather, yes, I said they got that wrong last year by.
Well, they were probably going off the
they're going off an almanac or something and be like, oh, this is when our traditional high
is. Which is silly. Why don't they? There's all these rules out there that they expect people to read. This is past the brochure they give you when you buy your fishing license, okay? There are many spots I've accidentally gone and fished and talked to captains that are like, you can't fish there. And I'm going like, how was I supposed to know that unless I talked to you?
Yeah, our first year trolling, we started north of the Brewerton Channel. Now, we only started north by like, half mile, but I didn't know what... You could have told me the Brewer. I had no idea what that channel even was. Cause,
exactly.
So I still had to learn that... But yeah, that would be interesting if they did it that way, and they still could. I mean, they still can't disseminate rules. I just had to tell you today that you have to wear your boat lanyard when you're on plane, and nobody else knew that.
Well,
there's a lot of people that don't know. And again, that's another rule that somebody just came up with.
Is that brand new?
Yeah, it just came out that they said anytime you're on plane, you have to have your lanyard on, just like you have to wear your mask at all times. Good luck.
Those are 2 totally separate rules there.
I mean, if you read the rules, if you're on a marine boat in open waters, you have to have a mask on. Which good? Yeah, go on Wicked Tuna and tell them to put a mask on.
If you're what?
If you're on a commercial fishing boat, they have to wear a mask at all times, even when they're sleeping. Is what the law says.
On open waters?
I think it says in federal waters on commercial fishing boats, they have to have masks on at all times.
Shoo. Which
is hilarious. Nobody's doing it. Are you going to go out in the middle of the ocean and tell a guy to put a mask on?
Yeah.
It's hilarious. But that's like the lanyard thing. I get the logic behind it because we've all seen a video of a boat going in circles, but is there an epidemic of it? I mean, is it? Yeah,
well, that's what was crazy last year is when the whole COVID thing hit. It was still March, and it was like fishing's open, and they were like shut down the marinas, the boat ramps were all coned off with red danger tape, and it was like, I guess we know a lot more than we did then, but if you're looking back, you're like, that was the safest place to be.
Yeah, alone on your boat, out in the sunlight, actually getting some little bit of some exercise, some physical activity in the sun. That seems to be the best
vitamin D, all that good stuff. Instead, they were like, no, go to work and sit in the office.
Like hide in your house. But you could still take your motorcycle out, drive by yourself, but you couldn't take your... was just... When they started doing that was when I was like, okay, this makes no sense. You guys are just throwing darts.
The first day after that, I did go... I went out. I'm like, I'm going for a boat ride. I'm fishing.
And then the best was sustenance fishing came out. So every cabin cruiser had one fishing rod on the back going, we're going catfishing.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's when it just got silly. And it's... I remember when they told you you couldn't drive around, and I had tools in my car at all times, so I could say that I was going to do some home repair or something because I was worried they're going to pull people over. I mean, it was a different world, and thank God we're hopefully moving,
and we're laughing at it at this point.
Yeah, and hopefully we're moving in the right direction, and that they haven't come up with any craziness this year.
Only time will tell.
God, hope so.
Yeah, it just keeps getting crazier and crazier, but who knows? So, all right, we'll recap here. As far as things not to do, or as new fishermen, or things to do per se.
Yeah, so get educated first with, go with someone that knows what they're, before you spend a dime. And if you're already a fisherman, like a bass fisherman, so hold on to your gear. Do not get,
Well, no, not only that. It's get out there and get with educated dudes. Just because you know how to bass fish or catch carp or whatever you do, every single fish is different. They have different patterns. Educate yourself on the migration. Get out there with good captains who know what they're doing. Birds. Find the birds.
Yeah,
Once
you can turn
find
all
the
your
birds,
gear off on the birds.
Yeah,
you don't need any of these expensive fish finders, which I have a ton of.
Yeah.
That's and the birds go everywhere. You just got to find them.
Yeah,
they're up. They're up by Pools Island. They're up by Hart Mill. They're in the Patapsco. They're over on the Eastern Shore. They're in Eastern. They are. When I thought, they're just south. No. They're everywhere.
Yeah.
They just might not be where you are.
Invest in binoculars that can see up to 5 miles.
Yeah, and
the gyro ones.
Yeah, I mean, it is simple. You don't have to do you do not have to waste a ton of money buying a ton of stuff.
Yeah.
It would have been I could have invested that and going out on charters with light tackle guys 10 times over. And I would have been, I would have been so far advanced on the curve and be like, oh, this all does work. It's not voodoo witchcraft. These guys aren't like, I thought they got a secret network and that's only they know where these fish are. And no, they're everywhere.
Yeah,
you just gotta, put the time in.
Time on the water.
Time on the water.
Time on the water. Birds.
I wish there was a short there. All these little do not do and these will help you get there faster, but you ain't getting there fast. If you can go out and just crush it in your first year on light tackle and without doing it ever, man,
you struck gold.
Yeah, you are good. I mean, I said there's lots of people are great at that, but so, if you're running that boat, I think you need to know, and you need just time. Yeah, just time.
Waste money.
Yeah, waste gas. Follow the birds.
So, all right, buddy. Well, I appreciate you coming up. We had a okay fishing day today. It was cold as shit, but
we caught 2 fish.
Yeah, we caught 2 fish.
Two species.
Yeah,
multi-species day is to put it. Yeah.
So I think the next thing, like I said, is after our Reds trip in a month or two, we'll get back together with you, me, and Novak. We'll recap everything. Hopefully, we have a good fishing story to tell and not a what not to do for redfish.
No, that's going to be that's going to be good. I got a good feeling.
Yeah, we'll see. But I appreciate you coming up here. I appreciate you doing the podcast. I look forward to having you on as a resident, 4, 5, 6 time a year guy. You're a great dude. Like we found out in the Novak podcast, and we're learning together, and I think we're making leaps and bounds. So yeah. I appreciate you coming up, buddy.
All right, man.